All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started here. I do want to let you know this is just part one of the new webinar series that we're looking to do, so keep an eye out for more in the future, and we'll talk about that a little bit more towards the end as well. We have about 30 minutes that we're going to talk all about our main topic today, and then at the end we're going to have questions, and following that, I'll tell you about what to expect from the webinar series. But first, let's talk about why we are here. We are here today to discuss marketing development funds. They hold a lot of potential, but in reality, a lot of that potential can go untapped. So too often, partners either don't spend their funds, or when they do, they don't invest in the strategies that actually work. That's money and that's opportunity that's left on the table. So we know MDF programs come with high expectations, but the dollars can sometimes sit unused or they vanish into that black hole of inefficiency. So today, what we're going to do to discuss that, what we're going to dig into is why partners don't use those funds even when they're available, what actually drives stronger utilization and ROI, what to track and how to track to prove that it is working, how to build MDF playbooks that partners actually want to use, and then what tech and support can make all of this scalable without driving your team over the edge. We're going to cover all of this in the next 30 minutes or so, like I said. Then we'll wrap up with the Q&A, so use that chat, throw them in there. We want to hear all of your questions. At any point, you can drop them in there, and I'll save them for that Q&A at the end. We'll get to as many of them as we possibly can. To introduce the team that's behind this, we have two incredible voices that are going to guide us through this conversation. First up, we have Laura. Like I said, she is joining us from Chicago, and she is VP of Client Partnerships. She spent over 15 years deep in the channel trenches, launching, scaling, and even rescuing MDF and incentive programs across global tech brands. So from rolling out large-scale programs to consolidating fragmented regional efforts, she has truly seen it all, and she's solved it all too. Her passion: real partner adoption, smarter fund utilization, and evolving these programs so they don't just run, but they thrive. Joining her and joining us today is Dwenya. She is coming in from Atlanta, and she is Senior Director of Strategy. She brings 20 plus years of omni-channel marketing experience, and she knows exactly how to turn strategy into measurable impact. She is a powerhouse when it comes to connecting brands with their audience across B2C, B2B, and partner ecosystems. She's going to bring a unique blend of analytics, creativity, and channel expertise to the table today. So together, they're going to help us navigate the exciting, sometimes chaotic, but always high-stakes landscape of MDF impact. So to kick things off, Dwenya, let's go ahead and start unpacking the biggest challenges. Why aren't partners using those funds in the first place?
Awesome, Josh. Thank you for that intro. So let's kick things off by addressing the core challenge. Why do so many MDF dollars go unspent? It's not because partners don't want to market, it's because the process often gets in their way. Many partners aren't even aware MDF is available, or they're confused by the complex access and eligibility rules, making it hard to even get started. Accessing and managing MDF can be time consuming. There's cumbersome workflows, unclear requirements, and outdated systems. All that makes the process feel more like a burden than a benefit. Now, drop a yes in the chat if that resonates with you. Absolutely, Natasha. It can be a challenge. So with that, we also find that some partners lack marketing resources or expertise. Some we often see in low maturity organizations or among those that are new to their marketing roles. Others don't see a clear path to ROI or have success stories. Now put a thumbs up or a fire emoji or even an angry face if that hit a nerve, because we know that can hit a nerve. And this is often due to limited performance tracking and a lack of support to execute effectively. Another major challenge is when MDF programs don't align with their partners' go-to-market strategies. Many are often confined by rigid structures, and they often feel disconnected from real needs, and that which limits their creativity and impact. Another common pain point, which I'm sure you all can relate to, is their delayed reimbursements. Long wait times for payment can put unnecessary strain on partners' cash flow. And over time, this erodes their trust and discourages that future participation. Now type DP, D as in P, you're on my block if that's something you've seen before. And then lastly, limited enablement is another challenge. Without clear guidance or co-marketing support, partners struggle to execute effectively. This leads to missed opportunities and underused funds. Now, shout out if any of this sounds familiar, put a shout out in the chat because I'm sure most of you can relate. Now, what this is a reality check for us, and it is a call to action. If we want to drive better outcomes, we need to remove these friction points and reimagine how we support our partners. Now, what drives fund utilization? Let's talk about that. We conducted a study and found that on average, around 40 to 60% of MDF goes unspent. This is a very clear sign that current processes aren't working efficiently. So how do we turn this around? Drop a yes in the chat if you're ready to dive in. I'm ready. Let's go. Well, it starts by simplification and enablement. First, you'll need to focus on streamlining your process by reducing admin burden. Secondly, you'll want to incorporate clarifying guidelines. Keep approval simple. Fewer layers means faster access to funds and less hassle for partners. You also want to speed up your approval process. Make it easier for partners to say yes to MDF. And I know if you're ready to hear yes to MDF, give me a big round of applause because we are all ready for that. But it's not just about the process, it's about the people. And by people, I mean partners, dealers, agents, distributors, whatever you call your team. That equipping them with training, toolkits, and co-branded assets empowers your partners to act with confidence. And lastly, communication is key. Partners need consistent communication to know what's available, how to use it, and what success looks like. And to really engage in partners and boost performance, we've got to understand what they need at every step of their selling journey. And that means using personalization, data, and automation to make it easy and relevant. And then lastly, finally, incentives matter. We all like free cash, right? Free money. When partners are rewarded for performance, they're more likely to engage. Now that I've kind of gone through some of these, type of AHA, AHA, if that light bulb in your head just turned on, those creative juices and strategic juices are now flowing because now we're on to something. So in applying these fundamentals, Ansira helped clients boost utilization from about a 40% to about a 75 to 98% utilization, which are huge wins. Now, don't worry if you missed any of this while I spoke, we'll share a more detailed copy after the session. And I'll go ahead and turn it over to Laura next.
Wow, Dwenya, you really set the scene so well. And I know we've covered a lot of the common roadblocks as to why partners aren't using this funding that is readily available to them, and then also flipping that narrative to make MDF easier to use, easier to access, and more valuable. But even if you solve these challenges and drive that higher adoption, the one big question still remains, especially from internal stakeholders, is all of this working? And that brings us to this next piece, tracking ROI. I feel like in a MDF webinar, you have to have ROI. It's like any webinar, you have to say AI these days. And this is really where a lot of companies get stuck, and not because they don't care about the results. I know everyone on this webinar does care about those results, but really what we're seeing is they don't have the right structure or tools to measure them. So let's look at how to start building more visibility into what's working, and then how to tell that compelling story of MDF impact that grows over time. So as you can see here, and we'll have a series of survey insights throughout this webinar, but according to Gartner, proving ROI with analytics is a top 3 challenge for tech marketers at companies over 100 million in revenue. Like, those are large companies. And Forrester backs that up as well. MDF is one of the most scrutinized parts of your channel budget. I'm sure everyone here can contest to that. But yet it's the most that teams struggle with to measure the impact. So why is that? Really, it's because it's more complicated than a clean percentage. And we see as common challenges, there's limited visibility into partner lead data. They really hold that close to the chest. Lots of MDF programs, if you can believe it or not, are still heavily manually managed or have manual integration components. Or partners aren't always equipped or incentivized, which Dwenya hit on that earlier, always the money. You want to give them that carrot to report back consistently. So once again, we did our own survey ahead of this webinar, and we asked, how do you currently measure the return on investment of your MDF activities? And 58% of respondents either don't know or don't currently measure. So I think that confirms what we all already knew. Visibility is limited and data is often siloed or unavailable. And if your team feels stuck or behind here, don't worry, you're not. Clearly, you're in good company across many different companies. It's definitely a shared challenge, even at that enterprise level, as you can see from Gardner's survey. But the good news is there is a path forward, and that's kind of what I'll go through next. So when it comes to ROI, we often default to that one number that I was talking about, that percentage return. But in partner marketing, as we all know well, attribution is rarely that simple. I know we are fighting with every different team to say, no, this is our lead. We attributed to that conversion. There's so many pieces to that puzzle. And I think a question that we can ask that maybe would be better is, are we seeing the right behaviors and the right outcomes from the funds we're investing? And you'll see on this slide here, really showing that ROI maturity, it is a journey, and every program is at a different stage. And really, you don't need to measure everything today. You don't need to ask questions for the sake of asking questions of your partners, but you do need to know what's possible and start tracking what you can. Leadership is going to want to see stats. You probably got asked yesterday for stats on how your program's performing and what the impact is. So it's about how can you get there, given where your program is at operationally and from a data perspective. So if you look at this table at that base level at the start, it might just be tracking spend and revenue by partner and overlaying that data together. That alone can start build basic benchmarks. So looking at if partners are participating in MDF, are those growing versus those who aren't? Super basic, but something that you need to tell. And this can even be done if you're managing MDF in a spreadsheet. Then as your program evolves, you can begin tracking what tactics are working, webinars, paid media, the ever-present partner event, which I don't think will ever go away. That's always going to be probably your top spend. Everyone loves an event, but no one likes to plan it. So start, and then you can start building those approved playbooks, which Dwenya is going to get into a little later in the webinar, going all of the secret sauce, I will say. She'll be spilling that. And then you can see what actually moves the needles in form of that activity. Then when you're able to take it another step, you can require partners to upload leads. This can be scary and you can get pushback from partners, but you'll want to get, for DG activities, leads directly uploaded to your MDF portal as that required proof of performance. And that's going to really add that first layer of demand visibility. And then from there, hopefully you can get an integration and push those leads into your CRM, PRM, whatever that may be, to follow them through the sales cycle, to be able to see how MDF maybe touched that lead in some way, shape, or form. And then finally, that most advanced stage, which I think is kind of the nirvana of ROI, is when opportunity and lead data could flow back into your MDF platform. So you have as a central place where partners can, and you can see which activities actually drive revenue. I think that's really aspirational to get to, but it's something to strive towards if you can. So back to the surveys. We asked, which MDF supported activities deliver the highest impact for your company. 46% said it's too hard to tell, or we don't track. So want to just let you all know you're not in it alone, but it's a common problem. And the main thing I want to point out here, that the goal isn't perfection, it's going to be progress. And even these incremental steps can help make a stronger case for what's working and where to double down. So I want to bring this to life because I think ROI is such a key point of MDF specifically, and share a quick example of how we helped a global tech client take a really painfully manual, messy lead tracking process and turn it into scalable, measurable, and ROI engine. So before this rollout, which I was involved in personally, so I could speak to it front to back, the client's process, like I said, was manual. Partners had to complete this absolutely massive lead template. Like, it gave me a headache looking at it. Internal teams had to scrub the data, clean up things, a lot of back and forth, sending spreadsheets to submit leads. I know everyone here is nodding, yes, Laura, that's what we've done, or that's what we're moving from. It was a mess. It created errors, delays, and it really made tying MDF spend to outcomes almost impossible. And so what we implemented within our Incent platform was our integrated leads module, along with a direct API connection into their CRM. And this allowed partners to upload their leads directly to the MDF portal, tie them to the activity, and that data flowed automatically into their CRM. The results were game-changing, let me say. The lead data accuracy improved due to the systematic controls. Opportunity creation accelerated, and partners no longer waited to claiming to submit the leads. They could do it as soon as the activity wrapped. So it didn't just improve internal visibility, it completely elevated that partner experience. They no longer had to fill out that mess of a spreadsheet, which they all appreciated. And really that drives that better adoption and performance. So this is a great example, and why I'm sharing it today, of how the right technology not only simplifies operations, but it also unlocks real ROI visibility. So turning MDF from this black box of just shelling out dollars into a measurable growth driver. And that's what we're going to talk about next. What to look for in a high impact MDF platform that really can level up your program.
I gotta say, anytime I can get rid of a spreadsheet, personally, I am so happy. So when we go to
Yes,
talk
please.
about this next topic, this tech, what do you look for in that high impact tool? What's important to you? Like, what kind of tools or UI or experience matters most? And if you want to keep spreadsheets, tell me. We want to hear what's important to you.
I mean, there's a time and a place for a spreadsheet. I will admit it is a beautiful thing, but they can be cumbersome.
Absolutely, Laura. Absolutely.
And we've evolved, so let's evolve with it, right?
Yes, we're in what year? We're 2025, the age of AI, where it's going to make everything better.
Easy
All right,
to use. Agreed, Marilyn. Agreed.
let's rock and roll. Let's talk tech, because when it comes to MDF and channel incentives, partner incentives specifically, the tool you choose can really make or break your program, especially as you grow. And every company is trying to drive revenue. You're a company, you're not a charity, you want money. And if your business is all in on the partner model, if your company is really heads down on partner, that means your incentive programs are going to scale too. It's only a matter of time. And you need a platform that scales with you, not one you're going to outgrow and have to replace. So with that, what should you be looking for in a tool? Lots of things. But this list that I have here is just a quick, heavy hitting list of the core elements. By no means is it exhaustive, because you guys would hate the slide that I put together if it was. But really key things that you should make sure it has. The platform should be centralized, and flexible. So it needs to handle not only MDF, what we're talking about today, but co-op, rebates, spiff, rewards, whatever you're incentivizing your channel with, whatever you call them, partners, dealers, agents, retailers, whatever, it needs to support all of that in a centralized place. It also needs to automate the heavy lift. So enrollments, approvals, payments, notifications, compliance. It needs to automate all of that stuff in a flexible way. And one thing we've been hearing a lot about from channel chiefs recently, especially from global companies, is the growing challenge of managing those complexities across EMEA and APJC. Really when it comes down to the nuances of the country level, it's just a lot of complex things that you need a platform that's flexible enough to support. It needs to look at, your tech needs to have local currency planning, tech rules, regional workflows, going back to that usability for your partners. With that, you want to be flexible, but you don't want to lose that global consistency. You want to be able to give them this box to play in, but give them their own regional or country flavors with you, which you will. And let's not forget about compliance. That kind of goes nicely into that. I always say this, it's not a question of if you'll be audited, it's when. And obviously audit, everyone just wants to like throw up when they hear that word because it's a pain. Your platform needs to track every transaction, every action, every document. You want it to be audit ready always. It's going to make your life so much easier. You won't have to go chasing for anything. And it's really, I think, table stakes when you look at an MDF platform. Also, the platform should play nicely with your existing partner tech stack. So your PRM, your CRM, all of the RMs that you have, and give your partners an intuitive branded experience that really doesn't feel tacked on. It should feel cohesive. Because we all know here, there's not one piece of tech that does all the necessary things at a super high level. So you're going to have multiple, but have them seamlessly stitched together. So I talked a lot about technology pieces, and I think there's one part that often gets missed in this conversation, and it's really not just about the platform. We see even the most self-serve SaaS system still needs the right support around it, because as your program grows, so do the questions, and that's where services come in, and it's so integral to success. I always say you want to look at how you can get a centralized help desk support that can offer multilingual, fast, and knowledgeable support, because your PAMs, CAMs, PMMs, whatever you call them, they should be focused on growing revenue, building relationships, and evolving your strategy. They shouldn't be walking partners through tax form requirements, POP documentation, anything else. You should really look to have those services supported. And for your internal ops teams, admin tools matter as well. And you should be able to self-serve updates as your program evolves, not wait in a dev queue. So really a key thing to look at as well. At Ansira, I've been here probably forever. We've seen this in action, combining that smart tech with strong services. And that's really what moves that needle. It's not just about building the tool. It's not Field of Dreams. It's about removing that friction from every angle. And that's what's really going to drive adoption, ROI, and make your incentive program that partners really want to engage with, and not something that they want to avoid. So lots on the tech, and I'm saying, oh, this is what you should do. This is what it should look like: centralized, scalable, automated. Great, great, great. I know for a lot of you that might feel a little aspirational, but you might be thinking, Laura, that's really cute. That's fantastic. But like, how do I make that happen? Well, I will tell you, I have another case study within here. And this is a real example of how we worked with another global tech brand that took their manual disconnected processes to a fully streamlined MDF engine. And it not only saved them time and cost, you can see that by the numbers here, but it also improved the partner experience while giving leadership the visibility they needed to make smarter decisions. It's really a great illustration of what's possible when you pair that right tech with the right operational support. So to give some background here, this global tech company had a common challenge we see across lots of MDF programs. I should take a note from Dwenya and be like, drop a yes if you have these problems. Their processes were completely manual, fragmented across multiple teams, from operations to finance, to tech ops, to whoever it is. Those approvals were slow. Communication with partners was inconsistent, and leadership had very little visibility into how the program was performing. So, not surprising, as I talk through this, it really created friction at every step along the way. So, not only for internal teams, but for partners as well. It meant that a lot of time was spent just keeping the lights on, and instead of focusing on strategy or growth with their partners. So what did we do? Well, we implemented a centralized MDF portal using our Incent solution. And the goal of this was not just to build a platform to automate the processes, but to streamline the entire experience. So from budget management to partner support to integrated communications, and then provide that real-time ROI tracking. So really transforming how their program was operating. And you can see here, results speak for themselves. The 96% reduction in operational costs, 50% fewer manual steps in the lead process, which we got rid of spreadsheets, Josh, in case you were wondering. And a major lift in that payment efficiency, because that's all what partners want is payment efficiency. They want to get paid as fast as possible. And what really stood out was that strategic shift. So the client teams were freed up to focus on partner growth instead of process firefighting. And once again, this is really what it looks like when tech, process, and support come together to create real impact. All right, so now that we've seen what's possible when you have the right tech foundation, we're going to shift gears to what partners actually do once they have access to the funds, because we all know the best run program won't move the needle if partners aren't clear on how to use those dollars efficiently. So without further ado, Dwenya's going over the secret sauce of the MDF playbook to drive engagement and impact.
And before we get there, I'm going to drop something in our chat here. We dropped a word not long ago that was incent. We want to make sure that that is known. Incent is kind of the umbrella that touches on everything that happens within this world, within co-op, within NDF. So I'm dropping that link right now. And as we move forward into this, what to look for with this playbook, what's important to you? What do you want out of a playbook? Drop those thoughts in the chat. Let us know what kind of playbook or what kind of plans you have for that as well.
Awesome. Thanks, Josh. I was actually going to say as well, if those in the audience that are currently using playbooks for MDF specifically, if you can put a thumbs up in the chat, I want to see who's ahead of the game. But if not, we'll get you caught up right now. All right. So one of the most important tools you can provide your partners to ensure a successful program that delivers growth is a clear, actionable playbook. We conducted a study and found that 71% of partners report difficulty accessing or using funds. Additionally, I came across a Gartner study that found that organizations that implement structured marketing playbooks see up to 33% improvement in either a campaign or program performance, which is very applicable here. With that, this kind of resource, especially in this economic climate where every dollar counts, it's not optional, it's essential. So it goes beyond being a PDF as well. Like we've seen PDF versions, but we want to ensure that this is digital first, it's within the platform itself, but it's that guide that really walks partners through every step of the MDF journey, from eligibility to fund types to application, approval, reimbursements. It's a one-stop shop. I won't read through all the details on the slide, you'll have it after, but I do just want to call out a few of So the first section, you want to ensure that you have your program overview. You want to outline your purpose and goals of the MDF program, as well as how MDF supports partners' growth and joint business objectives. Key is making sure they understand how the tasks and activities that they're doing is really going to help draw business from a bottom line standpoint, even top line. Eligibility criteria. Who qualifies for MDF? Are there certain tier types or partner types that's eligible for different types of fund levels, fund types and use cases? What types of MDF funds are available? Are you guys operating with proposal-based, accrual-based, and discretionary? And also, what marketing activities should they be using their MDF funds? And that could be digital campaigns, event, content syndication, paid marketing, just the gamut of that full marketing ecosystem. Application process. This is basically going to provide that step-by-step guide of how they should be submitting requests, what are their required documents and timelines, and also, most important, how they need to access the platform or portal that you may be using. Share a clear outline of your approval workflow. That typically can be a big holdup in approval process and so forth. So you want them to be clear on how requests are reviewed and approved, as well as the turnaround times. Execution guidelines. Now, this will vary and be tailored depending on your MDF program unique needs, the type of marketing activities that you may be using or doing. So that can be anywhere from branded messaging requirements to co-marketing best practices. But again, it's really based off of how your program is set up in your marketing activities. You want a clear outline of your claim and reimbursement process, like how should they submit proof of execution? What are their required documents? Do they need to have screenshots, invoices, performance reports? And then also let them know what the reimbursement timeline is as well. Performance measurement. We really just want them to have a clear idea of what KPIs are being expected. Are you guys focused on lead generation, cost per leads, pipeline influence, how ROI is being evaluated? So that's going to be important to clearly outline. Incentives and rewards, we talked about this a few times, but everyone wants to know where that extra money comes from. So how does MDF usage tie to those performance-based incentives? What rebates are included, SPIF, or any type of co-marketing bonuses? And then lastly are going to be your FAQs and troubleshooting. This is definitely a lifesaver. There's often common questions that come up when it comes to MDF. So you're going to make sure you have a quick, like a cheat sheet or just a quick review of what those top questions are and what those particular usual answers are. And if not, who is that person up to contact if they need to escalate any further? So with that, before I turn it over, I do see Natasha and looks like Heather. Are you fired there? But we do it. Natasha, looks like you are using the playbook. So that's very good to see. Thank you. I'll go ahead and turn it over back to Laura.
Awesome. Thanks, Dwenya. So you hit on the support, and I think that dovetails nicely into enablement. From my perspective, it really is key to MDF adoption and impact. And one of the things, you really can't treat it like a one-time event or a one-size-fits-all checklist. Partners are all little butterflies. They are very, unique in their approaches. And on that, back to the surveys, I told you there'd be a lot. We asked partners what percentage of their MDF allocation they use, and almost 50% said less than 50% of their MDF allocation. Like, what? That's clearly like they're leaving funding on the table that should be out there in the market driving pipeline. So what that tells us is clearly access, usability, and enablement are still huge hurdles that we need to overcome to get partners putting these dollars into the marketplace. So I've bucketed this out, and really where we look at things, it starts with a clean, intuitive portal. Back to that tech talk. Partners shouldn't need a manual to navigate it. Also, that's where these new user journeys, in-platform prompts, and automated workflows really help to guide that experience. But with that, not everyone's going to self-serve because that would just be too easy. You need to layer in that multi-channel support as well. So that's really where those services, that support comes into play with that global help desk, having live chat, email, really having it in local language where it makes sense for your partners. And that's a key to reducing that friction to using MDF. And program enablement is just as important as tool enablement. Partners need those clear, actionable guidelines. Like, we all know your playbooks are massive. We know your terms are like the Apple terms. They're long, they're small. So how do you make it digestible? Letting partners know what's eligible, how to claim, what are the exact timelines, in one place, so it's easy to digest, like I said. Then the use of proactive communications, Dwenya hit on this earlier, like really use those to keep them engaged. Don't wait for them to log in, highlight those fun windows, share campaign playbooks, showcase what's working, really go out there into your partner ecosystem to make sure they know what's going on. You can also add in peer learning and live touch points. So webinars like we are today, coaching sessions, success stories, here's how a partner just like you did XYZ thing, really looking to build partner confidence and keep that momentum going. We're also seeing strong results with in-platform surveys that we've been doing with some clients. So collecting feedback from those partners, making changes, and then communicating that back out. Those changes could be tool related, program related, whatever it is. And that really just builds that trust and shows partners you're listening to them. And we can't forget the field teams, always back to the PAMs, CAMs, PMMs, whatever they're called. If they're not trained and aligned, it's hard to expect partners to follow suit. They are the boots on the ground. They hold those relationships for those managed partners. And you need them to understand what is going on with the program to really drive that adoption. So enablement, it's not just a slide in the deck, it's a layered strategy. And when done right, it really clears the path for your partners and just amplifies the impact of everything that you've built. So now that we've kind of gone through the final step with enablement, I'm going to hand it back over to Dwenya because we touched on so much stuff and your brains might be like, what am I supposed to focus on? Well, we will tell you.
All right, so like Laura said, we went through a lot of content today, but we will be sharing this deck out at the end. Sorry, he went. And we do want to wrap up with a quick key takeaways that we want you guys to focus on. So the biggest thing, definitely make sure that you have those rules defined clearly and that you create that streamlined process. And that's where we talked about the playbook that definitely comes into play. Simplify their experience by having this seamless, intuitive, easy to use design and functional experience. Implement a flexible, a scalable, centralized platform, and pair those with some type, just like smart services, your training, your help desk, strategic enablement. Again, the more you can get them to help self-serve themselves, the more efficient the program will be. Supply those ready, easy to use marketing materials. Again, like I shared earlier, some of our partners aren't necessarily marketers by profession, or they may be new to the craft. So giving them tools that we know as marketing experts that work well, giving them those best practices, that's going to be a win-win for you and a huge lift. And then lastly, making sure they have access and visibility to how we need to measure and optimize performance of their activities. Tracking matters most. It's not just about tracking the track, but really looking at efficiencies and outcomes and not just attribution. So with that, I'll go ahead and turn it over to Josh to get us wrapped up.
That amazing work. Like, that was so much information. It was so detailed. You took those complex topics and you make them accessible, you make them actionable. And it was actually really exciting to hear all of this. You guys are so full of knowledge. So from modernization to efficiency and then to the real partner value, it's just eye-opening to see how all this can come together and then create a meaningful and measurable impact. So for everyone here in the chat, everyone watching the webinar, think about how you can take this MDF playbook that we've talked about and then apply it to your day-to-day. That's an opportunity right there in front of you. We're going to share it out afterwards in that PDF format. And if you're thinking, I need a deeper conversation about this QR code on our screen right now, you can scan that, and that's going to help connect you to who can make that conversation happen. If it's going to be our client partnership team, our new logo team. We'd love to help you explore how this can apply to your unique needs on that one-on-one kind of front there. So what we're going to do now is shift into that Q&A mode. We're going to look through some questions that we received in the chat today, and then also some of the ones that were submitted beforehand. So we'll start with Natasha. You had asked, so Dwenya and Laura, the question that came through the chat was, what if your customer doesn't want to share their leads, that level of detail?
Yes, that is a common challenge, and partners, hold them close to the chest, because honestly, they're most likely scared your direct team's going to steal the lead. So you've got to make them feel warm and fuzzy that that's not going to happen. And you need the tech, back to it, to be able to tell them, yes, partner generated leads go this way, maybe in your CRM, direct leads go this way. There's no intermingling. I don't know if your tech does that or not, but you're going to have to figure out if it does. Or partner leads get tagged X way, so they aren't intermingling, so your direct team can't steal them. So it really depends on how you're set up and how you can have that conversation with partners of like, this is why. And then you need that value add. So not only, don't worry, we aren't going to steal your lead, or we aren't going to give it to another partner. Obviously make sure that's sound, but you also need to show what's that value add to the partner. Are they going to get more funding if you can have insights into, their leads and opportunities that are converting because you're giving them MDF? So are you able to give them more money? So there's a lot of different things, and that's something that we can certainly have a larger conversation on, because I know I could talk about this forever, because it is really unique to how your company is set up, but I would say it's definitely a common thing. And when I look at it from a tech perspective, your partner, odds are probably partnering with other vendors, and those other vendors are probably requiring leads in some capacity. So there's always that as well. So they might be dragging their feet for you, but they might not be for another vendor. So kind of looking at that on what's really the problem with that partner not wanting to provide leads, or partners, excuse me.
Amazing. Dwenya, do you have anything to add there?
Yeah, I think the only other thing I was at, that was a great answer, Laura. But I think another thing to add to that, Natasha, is trying to understand like what you do have visibility to and access to, depending on how you're set up. So for example, we may be able to deploy like paid media or social campaigns for partners, but still not have access to what those leads were. But we are able to show some type of ROI based off how those individual campaigns perform. So you can tap into that as well without necessarily having to have the lead. But to Laura's point, that would definitely where we want to be, make them feel comfortable about giving that access. But if not, what do you have visibility to, and how do you take that and turn it to a positive ROI story?
Amazing. So I'll ask a couple more questions here. Feel free, if you had more in mind, drop them in the chat. What kinds of resources should we be giving our partners to make MDF use easier?
Wow. What type of resources? I feel like I want to go back to my enablement slide. Back to it, like just everything. So I would recommend, obviously, you need a portal. Like, you can't just have them ask for MDF through an email or a smart sheet or a shared spreadsheet. Like, you can't. So it needs to be a portal that's easy to use. They need to have visibility into the approval workflows. Also, I mean, you really want to make it worth their while with MDF dollars as well. I've seen some companies, like maybe their MDF budget's not that big, but you need to give a partners, more than $500, like in specific regions. So make it worth their while. And then just easy enablement. So any kind of training documentation that you can have at their fingertip. And I always find that having a support team to answer questions, because while we're in the age of AI and self-serve. Like there's something about a person. Like I know when I go call or I get an AI agent, I'm like, oh, person. Like it's not to that level. So I think that's really important to help reduce that friction. And then you can't really underestimate the power of your field team with enabling them so that while they're having the conversations and planning with the partner their marketing plan for the year, that they're evangelizing MDF and supporting that partner to really get that utilization.
Those are great, Laura. I actually have 3 to add to that list.
3.
Yeah, I have 3, and we can move forward. But the first one is definitely those pre-approved campaign kits. We already talked about playbooks, so that's definitely one. But making sure that we're able to provide them kind of that easy, ready-to-use, customizable kits, because you got to think about it. They're doing a lot in their day. Of course, all of them aren't marketing experts, but providing email templates, social media posts, landing and that co-branded assets, and also giving them the expertise around what the timeline should be in potential budgets. And then another one is the MDF application and claim template. So anytime you can kind of templatize anything that's really going to save them time. So those editable application forms, budget templates, claim submission checklists are very important. And of course, sample of what type of invoices or proof of performance documents that they can provide. And then the last one is definitely like that peer-to-peer. So what are those success stories or best practices, case studies of how others have been successful leveraging MDF? Because a lot of times we get in here, and sometimes with this virtual world, we can feel alone in a silo. But if you know your other partners might be experiencing similar pain points, really highlighting what they did to overcome to make MDF successful for them.
Excellent. And another question that we got, and this one I think is very important. I come across this in my role at Ansira very often, and that's, are there any differences in how you should approach MDF versus co-op programs?
Great question. I mean, you can also look at it from a semantics standpoint as well. To me, they're incentives and they should all be within the same tool. You should have the same visibility into your investment, whether it's an earned co-op or a proposal-based MDF. I've also even seen earned MDF. So tomato, in some capacities, they should all be within the same platform. And in my personal opinion, treat them the same because you want those dollars out in the marketplace working for you, as opposed to just sitting in there and not doing anything.
And I would add to that's a great point. I actually, when I'm asked that question, kind of have the same sentiment. We do find in a lot of places people are doing a kind of a hybrid of the two anyway.
Right.
So I think it's really the biggest difference I would say is the proposal-based piece of MDF. So with that, you do want to make sure your partners are very clear on how they need to write effective proposals to then get that request approved the first time around. So that would be the biggest difference, which means that they'll need more time for strategic planning, where you may not necessarily need that from a co-op side. But other than that, they essentially are dollars that they can leverage to do their marketing activities.
I mean, do you think that it's a lot of times just getting hung up on those terms with it, and that's more of what creates that cloud of confusion?
I think so.
Yeah, I do too, as well as the proposal piece. I think that's the other big piece as well.
Yeah, I'm guilty of that completely. When I hear those different terms, I automatically assume they need to be completely different things. So I appreciate those answers. Thank you.
Like, is it
And
Pepsi or is it Coca-Cola? And I know people are going to cue me on the call because I know there's some diehard Pepsi.
I don't know if there's Coke or Pepsi on here, but I'm like, there's a clear winner, and I will not say who the clear winner is.
And we have another
we all know
from the chat. How easy is it for your team to customize and approve co-branded assets as part of MDF utilization?
It's done. We already did it. It's done. That's how easy. No, so extremely easy, clearly. We do have the products and tech in place where you could have partners, whatever you call them, go in and customize those approved assets within the piece of technology connected with our MDF tool as well. So if they're already approved and they just plop in their yoga logo and don't mess with any other parts of the asset that we've locked down, extremely easy for us to approve that and have them go on their merry little way and get that out into the marketplace.
Excellent. Dwenya, anything to add? All right. I think we have time for one more question and then we'll wrap things up. The last question that I'll throw out here is not Coke or Pepsi. We'll talk about that later. My partners are used to using traditional marketing tactics, so they've been hesitant about some of the digital tactics my MDF program supports. How do I prove the value of these tactics to my partners?
Ooh, Dwenya, I'm throwing it over to you.
Is my wheelhouse for sure. So it really goes back to starting with the results. And when I spoke earlier about kind of that peer-to-peer case study, so being able to show some best practice and real world results of how their peers are essentially achieving success through marketing channels. Another piece too is that there's a hesitation from an education standpoint. Again, not everyone is a marketing expert or feel comfortable with it. So as we talked about MDF playbooks, we also create playbooks around marketing channels, different types of channels, and how to effectively use them. So making sure that your partners are well trained and versed on those different types. So whether it be organic, paid media, content syndication, event marketing. So we do have the option to go ahead and create playbooks around those to make sure that they are effective. And then once they have it, the other thing is you kind of want to crawl, walk, run. So show them what it looks like to test out as well. Like you don't have to do everything overnight or boil the ocean at one time, but give them the opportunity to test trial a few other options. They can definitely stick with print, but email is probably usually the easiest, quickest. Social media, like let them kind of tap their toe into the pond and then grow from there. But once you start to show the results that you see from digital, a lot of times you get a quick turnaround from our partners based off of, wow, this is working and I need to do more of this.
And
Amazing.
Might be controversial, and you would definitely want to check with finance and other mechanisms, but I have seen done in the past where maybe you reimburse at a higher percentage. So if you're at MDF and you're just doing 50%, I mean, I have the thought process you should always reimburse at 100%, but depending on your budget, you could look at, do we reimburse at 100% digital tactics? And if you do traditional, maybe it's 50 or 75. So just looking at, from a program structure, how could you layer those in? So definitely don't just do it, check with your compliance teams. But that's another thing that I've seen done previously to help, give that carrot and drive that behavior.
That's a good call. I do want to add one more great call out is when I talked about the teaching and the peer testimonials, also like webinars we're doing here. Like if I definitely partner leads and whoever's going to host it at the corporation can definitely talk them through kind of best practices, how to execute. I do believe we have teams internally that take those roles on as well. So we're always excited to help you walk through that, but definitely there's multiple ways you can to get at it to make sure they're successful.
Amazing. Amazing. And I think you actually keyed up the next slide perfectly in the most natural way possible. So that's awesome. What we wanted to do is before we wrap up, we wanted to point out again that this is just part one of the larger series that we're rolling out. So we have more of these webinars coming up. So to Dwenya's point, these webinars can help you with that empowerment and that knowledge and what to teach your teams. So we're going to have more of these coming up. This is just part one. Keep an eye out for part two, where we've got more strategies, more insights, more opportunities to turn potential into real performance. Thank you all so much for joining us today.